Welcome back to the All the Stops podcast, episode 13, which is supposed to be an unlucky number, right? I don't get that. I always loved the number 13. It just looked cool to me. I wanted to be 13 years old, and it just feels right. I don't know what it is. Anyway, this episode is far from unlucky. It is, in fact, a very lucky episode. We have a wonderful guest on today. It's Dr. Caroline Robinson, famous concert artist, recently joined the University of Michigan School of Music, Theater, and Dance as assistant professor of organ. Before that, she was organist and associate choir master at the Cathedral of St. Philip in Atlanta, Georgia. And gosh, she does so many things. She's got a doctorate from Eastman. She went to Curtis for her undergraduate. She's an amazing presence. She has fascinating thoughts about the organ and the organ world. And my God, you've got to hear her play. Active concert career, but we get into a lot of interesting topics today. We certainly talk about her path and what led her to sacred music and then to academia. But I think my favorite segment is the final one, where we just talk about where things are at the moment and how you build hope, how you build the future that you want to see. Really uplifting, exciting episode, and I'm very excited for you to see, now that we're a video. Her background is the coolest background we've had yet. She has a literal pipe organ behind her. For audio listeners, there's this light descending from above. It looks like she's in the celestial clouds, and then there's this like gorgeous pipe organ in the studio there in Ann Arbor. So enjoy that. Let's jump right into it. Oh, and before we do, a shout out again. Thank you to everybody who has jumped on in support on Patreon. If you have it in your budget to help us out a little bit, patreon.com/allthestopsmedia. Just throw a couple bucks our way. It will help so much to cover all of these subscriptions and all the things that are needed to make the show happen. I'm really appreciative of that. And if you do, you'll get ad-free versions of the show. And then we're going to be rolling out some special content on there as well. Also, thank you to people who've written in to info@allthestops.com. I want to read some listener thoughts and inquiries in upcoming episodes. So if you want to write in, please do. Anyhow, without any further ado, Dr. Caroline Robinson. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Caroline. How are you?
I'm doing well, Wesley. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Sorry to audio listeners. I still have that head cold that's hanging on after Easter, so please forgive that. You may hear a bit of an echo on Caroline's end because she is sitting in the coolest space with the coolest background. Caroline, will you describe for audio listeners what we're seeing?
So I'm in my teaching studio at the University of Michigan, where I'm a professor, and it's a pretty tall ceilinged room because there is an organ in here, and organs need space to breathe, as we all know. It's a 2-manual Letourneau tracker, and there's also some desks and a big smart TV, and there are also skylights. So it looks like these heavenly beams of light are coming down from the ceiling, but it's just the nice sunny day that we're having.
Yes, Caroline, I will say you're our first guest who appears to be in the gates of heaven, and certainly the first one with an actual pipe organ in the background. I love it.
I'm kind of surprised to hear that.
Right. Well, pipe organ show. Here we go. We finally have a pipe organ featured. We have so much stuff to talk about today, and I'm really grateful to have you on. It's going to be a great discussion. I think we should start with the beginning for you, how you got into the King of Instruments, when you fell in love with the instrument, and how did you know this was going to be your life?
So I come from a family of musicians. My mom is a violinist. My dad is a conductor and a percussionist. I like to joke that he knows both ends of the orchestra. And my sister is also a professional violinist. So I had no chance of not doing some sort of music growing up. And so my parents started me on piano and violin. My other joke is that I was always the worst violinist in the house because everybody was older than me and had been playing longer. And I was, very active as a kid. I was in choir and, doing little piano competitions and playing duets on the violin with my friends. And I kind of got to a place where I was a little burned out. In middle school, we're all changing, we're figuring out who we're going to be. And I just felt like the piano was not speaking to me as much anymore. So I had kind of devised this plan to quit, to tell my parents I'm going to quit the piano, which I know is a terrible thing. Everybody needs to keep playing piano, even if you've switched to the organ. It's very important.
Yes.
And maybe I was going to be a journalist or something. I don't know. And maybe have your job, Wesley, of doing podcasts. But actually, we had a new organist at my church, which was St. Mary's Catholic Church in Greenville, South Carolina, where I grew up. And he was a young person. I'd never seen a young person play the organ before. Representation really matters. And this was before Instagram and Facebook. And I only knew the lovely older lady that played at my church, who was great. But there was something about the energy and virtuosity that this person brought. There must have been some sort of fancy postlude, like the Bach D major or something. And that person's name is Adam Pagan, who is a known and respected organ performer, church musician, and teacher today, nowadays. And so he was our new organist at the age of 17. And I just was listening to the postlude, and when it was done, I turned to my mom, who was next to me, and I said, I think I can do that. Lots of hubris as a young person, but there was just like lightning struck, and I knew that this is what I was supposed to do. And I really believed that feeling. And so did my mom, thankfully. So she took me up to the loft and she introduced me to Adam, and we started having lessons. And so that was really what led me to begin. And then I just kind of dove head first. I really wanted to play Bach fugues, and I loved the French Romantic School. I was able to play in some studio classes at Furman University, which is down the road, where Adam was a student. And yeah, I'm so grateful that we were in church that day.
Wow. That a quick aside for any organists listening who feel a little down about the postludes and think, oh, I don't know if it's worth it all this time I put in. Remember what can happen. Remember, you can build a lifelong organist and one of the greatest ones alive. Caroline, when did this kind of grow into like, okay, I'm going to go to conservatory and I'm going to go to music school, and this is just what it's going to be for me? And tell people about kind of your story. Where'd you go to school, and how did it all go for you?
Well, just like you, Wesley and I know each other from probably the Oberlin Organ Academy in 2007. We just determined that. So a big part
19
of
years ago? Am I doing it right? 19 years
yeah,
ago?
19 years ago.
Oh no. Uh-oh.
So,
Okay.
those summer offerings are so important. And that's where we meet our colleagues, our friends that we still know today, the people that we collaborate and work with. So I think a lot of it was those experiences. I ended up studying with Charles Tompkins, who was at Furman University. I also did a competition where I didn't do very well. And one of the judges was the one and only Wilma Jensen,
Oh,
who
Wilma Jensen.
who's sassily, you should have her on this podcast, by the way. I think she would be great.
I'm not ready. I'm not prepared for it. It would be too epic.
That's true. Yeah, but she said to me, the reason you didn't win is because of, this, that, and this. And my mom, who's always there by my side, said, well, could she come study with you? And Wilma eventually said yes. And so we would go and drive from Greenville to Nashville, where she lives, and do occasional coachings with her. And she was so generous with her time. We would be on the bench for 3 hours on Friday night, 3 hours on Saturday morning. And I remember she was the first person who really told me about French Baroque music. She got me playing some of the repertoire that I still treasure today. Like I worked on the Prelude and Fugue on Alain with her, on the Eben Moto Ostinato. I still remember the lesson where she had me practicing jumping from manual to manual, that famous part exactly at the end. And she taught me a practice technique that I still use today, that I use with my students, of just like ghosting, but not actually playing the chord. And like, it's amazing how something that was told to me 19 years ago is a technique that I still use today. That's feel
amazing.
So grateful.
Oh, that's so cool. So then you ended up at Curtis for undergrad?
Yeah, so I also went to the Curtis Summer Organ Institute. It was called Kimmel Camp at the time, because it was held at the Kimmel Center for the Performing Arts and at the Wanamaker. So we kind of split our time. And through that experience, I had also met Alan Morrison before and started studying with him. And I don't know if everybody listening knows Alan Morrison, but he is the Fred Rogers of the organ world and also this
Aw.
virtuosic organist. And I just really wanted to study with him because he was both a wonderful teacher and also such a kind and calm person and just a wonderful personality to be around. So, the stars aligned. I ended up graduating a year early from high school because Curtis only accepts one person per year. It looked like the odds were better if I finished high
Right.
school 1 year early. I did gym online, which was kind of a
Oh,
joke.
wow. Wow, that was pro you were getting ready for the pandemic. You didn't know it at the
I
time.
did not know it. Yeah. And then I got in. I was really grateful for that. And, to everybody listening, there's probably times in your life that you feel like you don't deserve the things that you get or that you're not ready or you're not good enough. And I definitely felt like that for, going into Curtis and seeing these, violin prodigies around. And
Mm.
of course, my colleagues in the department were incredible. But what's really important is hard work, and we all worked really hard in that department. We had to memorize a piece every week for studio class. We were performing around town. I had a great church job out in Chestnut Hill working with Zach Hemingway. I learned so much about church music from him, and he's still a great friend and colleague today. I was just playing Easter out in Seattle where he works a few weeks ago. So that was an incredible experience.
This is incredible. And then you were going to go straight into grad school. So that's a time for organists who have to decide there, when you finish undergrad, there are a bunch of different paths that organists can take, and there's kind of the sacred music path, there's the competitions and performance path, there's doing like an academic doctorate, something like that, doctoral work. Some people will go to Europe for a bit. It seems to me, Caroline, like you did all of the above. Is that correct?
So I think probably maybe halfway through my time at Curtis, I really fell in love with the Episcopal liturgy, the Anglican liturgy. I remember going to my first evensong and just being astounded by the quantity of music and how beautiful it all was. I think it was Howell's Call Reg at that first
Wow.
evensong. And
Gosh, you just stumbled into like the most fortunate first experiences in the organ world. That's so amazing.
I feel so lucky. It's all been, yeah, so many blessings. Um, and so I was pretty sure that I wanted to go to England and be an organ scholar at a cathedral somewhere. And, I also want to point out that a lot of our ideas and our goals have to do with what's around us and our mentors and how our mentors encourage us. So I had great mentors kind of showing me the way. But then at some point, Nathan Lauba, who's another important mentor of mine, suggested that maybe I try to go study in France, and that the city of Toulouse was a place that was pretty welcoming to non-French people, and that there was this great teacher, Michel Bouvard, who liked to work with Americans. And why don't I apply for a Fulbright and see if that works out, and maybe I can have these multiple options, maybe going to England, maybe going to France. And eventually the Fulbright became the goal. I remember spending so much time on that application, writing lots of essays, making recordings, dealing with French bureaucracy. And it worked out, and I got it. And I ended up moving to France for a year after I graduated from Curtis.
Oh, how cool. Oh, that's so neat. So you were able to go to a completely different context and just spend time there, see a different approach to organ, and just it's so different. I mean, from country to country. So then when you came back from that, you must have started grad school.
Yes. So actually, it feels like everything is neatly tied with a bow in terms of the narrative, because while I was in France during there's a yearly organ festival called Toulouse Les Orgues that happens. And one of the performers on the festival that year was David Higgs. And I hadn't really thought about where I wanted to go to grad school yet. I kind of had some ideas in mind. But when I heard David perform on the Cavaille Cole at Saint-Sernin, to a full crowd of people. He played the first, second, and last movements of Vidor 6, and I thought, I think I want to study with him. And and I was his registrant along with a friend of mine, Chelsea Barton. It was just a really memorable experience. And so I just decided, I think I'm going to make my recordings to apply there, and ended up matriculating into Eastman in the fall of 2014.
Wow. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about balance between all of these things. Caroline is a really active performer, but also in academia. And we're going to talk about identity, and how all this works together. So stick with us. We'll be right back. If you think about it, having a pipe organ podcast is kind of crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people into the organ all around the world, but we're not exactly banging on the doors of the most popular, listened to, streamed podcasts in the world. So the way this works is that we have a Patreon. And if you jump on Patreon and you give a little bit of money to it, it helps this whole enterprise happen. It helps us bring on awesome guests, and it helps us to continue to just produce this. If you hate ads, subscribing on Patreon is a no-brainer because you get an ad-free version of all the podcasts. And also, you get extra content that you can only get as a paid subscriber. So I hope you'll consider it if you have the flexibility in your budget and help support this new enterprise, an organ podcast. For organists and non-organists and whoever likes the organ or wants to like the organ. The point is, hop on patreon.com/allthestopsmedia and give something if you can. It'll help us out a ton and it'll make me really happy. And you want that, don't you? I mean, come on. Patreon.com/allthestopsmedia. So then it was grad school, and now you are teaching, and some people might describe your, so forgive me here, but some people would probably describe what you do day to day as the dream, like the end game that a lot of people in our cohort as organists would have said, if I someday achieve all of my goals and everything works out perfectly, maybe I could have a shot at doing what you do day to day. You perform, you teach. Can you tell us, like, what is your life like teaching students, traveling around the country, playing? Like, just what is it like to be Caroline Robinson, the organist?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention where I was before I came to the University of Michigan, which is the Cathedral St. Philip in Atlanta. I worked with Dale Ottoman there and a host of incredible singers and musicians and clergy. That was an incredible place. I loved it. We made amazing music there, and I learned so much about myself. I got to learn a lot of repertoire and work with choristers doing teaching there. So I loved that job. And when the job position at University of Michigan came open, I thought, well, I'll just toss my name in the hat and we'll see what happens. If nothing else, I'll get practice applying for academic jobs, because throughout my time in grad school, I just realized that the teachers that I've had are so amazing, and I've had such a privilege to work with them. And I wanted to keep sharing what they've given to me. And I also feel like lifelong learning, it should be a goal for everybody. And I find that I learn most through conversation and through action. So in the little bit of teaching that I did in grad school, including one-on-one with students and also in the theory classroom, I realized that even though it's a ton of work and it can be really exhausting, and it's a very giving thing to do, I found it really rewarding. So I kind of had that goal in mind, even though I was really happy at the Cathedral St. Philip. I think it was a good problem to have, but still hard. And so I ended up getting this job. My colleagues here are Nicole Keller, who is the other organ professor. Tiffany Ng is our carillon professor, and Joseph Gasho is early music, early keyboards, harpsichord. He also curates a cool collection of rare instruments, and we are the organ department. It's a really multifaceted department, and I think that's what makes us really strong, because we have all these ways of collaborating outside of just the walls of the organ hall. So kind of my day-to-day life, I am currently building my studio. So I only have a couple of majors right now. They're great, by the way. I love working with them. I also this semester had 17 non-majors. So
17
yes,
non-majors?
yes. I actually was just
Wow.
teaching all afternoon before meeting up with you.
Congratulations. That's
And
incredible.
yeah, what I love about working with non-majors is that they bring something different to the table because they have such a variety of experiences and interests and backgrounds. So, today I worked with a nursing major, medical anthropology, one of my majors, and they all bring different perspectives that help me to learn and grow. And so I love it. And also they're doing it because they really want to. And there's an element of fun to the lessons and a lot of flexibility. The other things I do, I teach courses within our department. So this semester I taught a creative hymn playing class. We just had 5 people in that class, and we had a lot of fun working with different skills of types of introductions. We worked on how to create a reharmonization, descants. We talked about interludes. They worked with a trumpeter for their final exam,
Mm,
which was a hymn
sure.
festival at a local
Yeah.
church. That was super exciting. That was just a couple of days ago. The other things I do are kind of what you would expect a professor to have to do. I serve on committees. I have a lot of meetings. I do a lot
You
of
send
class prep.
emails, right? You send emails and you
Email.
teach
Yes.
occasionally.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. It's not as bad as you would think. I feel really lucky that the administrative work, at some point, I'll be chair and then it will be a lot more. But for now, it's just a lot of doing. And part of my job is dreaming up things that I want to do and projects I want to take on. So, I have a little recording coming up next month that I won't say much about, but I'm really excited to do it. It'll be my first commercial recording in a city that I really love. And we are taking the organ department to Germany, to Leipzig, to play a lot of the organs that Bach played. We're also going to Merseburg, to Liszt's organ, to Dresden. And that's going to be a learning experience for everybody. And just coming up, being tasked with creativity feels like such a gift. And sometimes it feels like a really big responsibility. But I think the more I practice it, the more I'll get good at it. A friend recently said that she makes a regular habit of practicing creativity, and I really love that.
I love that. Making a regular habit of practicing creativity. That's brilliant.
Mhm.
How do you balance this with your performance career? You're a managed artist and you maintain an active career. How does that work?
So the performing can be kind of as much or as little as I want. Of course, it depends on who asks, who invites, and if it works with my schedule at the university. I had a funny situation my first semester where I was invited to give a recital in China. And I was in China for 2 days, which was actually shorter than the amount of time I spent traveling. It's just how it
Oh,
goes
wow.
sometimes. But I think I am pretty meticulous with time management when I can be. Sometimes I just need to do nothing or scroll, but I try to really schedule my practice time as though it's a meeting that I have to attend. And I try to make really realistic goals of today I'm just working on these two measures in the Duraflame Veni Creator, or today I'm going to revamp a piece that I haven't played in 8 months that is for a recital in 2 weeks. And one of the things I have to do that also I encourage my students to do is always practice really efficiently. So no faster than you can play the notes correctly, which takes a lot of discipline. It's really hard to do that. I'm not always perfect at it, but it means that when I go back to revive that piece I haven't played in 8 months, it's ready to go. And this as a church musician, you've got your preludes and postludes that you take out maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years. And if you've done the work when you learn the piece, it's ready. It's ready for you to be unearthed in time for Pentecost or whatever.
It is always a struggle. I appreciate that, hearing you say that practice what you preach is a challenge for everybody. And man, I teach the students at the engineering school here, WPI, and I'm kind of at that. I'm saying these things daily and thinking, oh man, do I do this when I practice?
Yep.
But it does make me a better performer. It makes me a
Yeah.
better player too. I'm sure you've found that. This is so fascinating. We have so much more to talk about. We're going to take our final break today, but we'll be back for so much more. Stick with us.
You know, Anitra, they say the organ is the king of instruments.
They do. And given that the king of instruments is the inspiration for all the Stops media, maybe this podcast network is the king of networks.
It's possible. What I do know is that people who like organ or church music or classical music or whatever they're currently listening to on this network are pretty smart people.
Yep, but smart people don't know everything. And that's why it's helpful that people like us make podcasts to talk about the things we know a lot about. Because we know smart people are smart, so we can help them be smart about more things. In our case, board games.
You got it. We're Andrew and Anitra, married parents of 3, and for 10 years we've been talking about playing games with our kids and encouraging you to play games with the kids in your lives. And don't worry, even if you don't know what games are out there, it's more than just Monopoly.
Almost 2,000 games come out every year.
We're here to tell you all about it.
Because we know smart people like organs, but they also probably like board games.
You can find the Family Gamers podcast wherever fine podcasts are sold.
And all over social media at Family Gamers AA.
So we'll see you there, and play games with your kids.
You and I were part of the same cohort of of young organists, and I think we kind of came of age into the same organ world. My experience, and again, I'm from New England, where no one goes to church, and New England is one of the least religious places in the Western Hemisphere. You're from the Southeast, where people were in churches. But the story through the 90s and aughts and into the teens was like, this is it. Church is dying and the organ's on its back foot. And oh no. And you all have to save the organ. Did you kind of get that sense as well of you're the future?
Definitely. There was a lot of doom and gloom, and there still is. People will come up to me at concerts, after a standing ovation and a full house saying, so the organ is dying, right? And I'm like, excuse me, not from what I just heard.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange because I think you and I were just talking at the break about how actually we see more people coming to church. We have people coming to concerts, and we have a lot of people, the Anna Lapwoods, the Wesley Halls of the world, bringing the organ to people on all corners of the earth. So I don't really agree with those naysayers at, this or that concert saying the organ is dying, right?
That is so fascinating. It shows you how much like the PR of something can really stick with people. This is a weird example, but sometimes things will shift and they're just lags behind till people kind of realize like, forgive this kind of geopolitical aside, but there was a time where everyone talked about the US's dependence on foreign oil. And then there was the fracking, there was the natural gas revolution. And then the United States became a net exporter of fuel to the world. But people still said for like 10 years, what we need to do is reduce our dependency on foreign oil. And I know it's a weird example, but the organ is back, baby. Like the organ is so cool and people know about it. Like I've mentioned this before, but as near as I can figure, we're talking about minimum 3 million online interactions per week with pipe organ content online. 3 million minimum per week.
That's incredible. And
like
thank you,
week,
Wesley,
right?
for what you are doing. Thank you.
Well, oh my God. I mean, yeah, I'm a small piece of this. Like there are tons of creators making all this kind of stuff. That's just another on-ramp to this incredible world. Mm-hmm. Anecdotally, people are kind of dipping their toe back into church and starting to come to stuff. And also anecdotally, some of these concerts are getting pretty darn full. And so I think it is on us to talk about, no, things are exciting. Things are happening. With you specifically, I want to talk about academia because every institution is on the back foot. But there are some ways that Michigan is really, unique and kind of setting an example for other institutions.
Yeah, we are not just the School of Music. We are the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. So there's a lot of collaboration that happens here. And we have an amazing performing arts technology department. And so that's actually a department we work with a lot. And I've been a part of a performance that was for organ, harpsichord, Moog synthesizer, piano that was tuned in a gamelan tuning, and amplified carillon into the hall. We all played an aleatoric improvised piece together, and it was incredible. And so just that sort of collaboration that can happen in a university setting where things are being created all the time, and there's a lot of living, breathing art. The organ is not a dead instrument. And I think a place like university, a place like a church, where there's a lot of people coming in and out, there's a lot of variety, and it happens every week. There's a lot of regularity, means that there's life in the music that we are playing. We are also playing our Bach preludes and fugues, but there's also newness. And I want to mention that, I think there is maybe in certain aspects kind of push to sometimes dumb things down or play what the audience really wants to hear. I think there's a time and a place for that. There's a time and place for movie transcriptions, for pop songs. I think it's great because it's getting people excited about the organ with something they know. I also think at the same time, we should feel empowered to keep doing the highest form of our art because that at the end is what's sustaining. It's like, we have our sugar and our ice cream and everything, but then we have our fiber and our protein in our major works of Franck and Duraflé and Reger. And people, once they've been introduced, if you give them a little something to connect with, maybe through oral program notes, they will be with you for the journey and they'll probably come back.
I love that. I think that's so true. And I love talking about it in a nutritional sense and like a balanced diet. I love that. It's really apt. Been having a lot of conversations with colleagues about this kind of stuff, church and organ and the performance world and then academia. And I think it's really important for us to remember that there are a lot of things that are not within our control. There are many churches close every year now in the United States, and many open as well. But it's a net loss. But some of those things are like demographics and economic, like the factory closed in the city and then the suburbs start to shrink around it
Mhm.
because there aren't jobs and people move away. Well, sure enough, the church in that suburb starts to shrink and starts to decay, and sometimes the churches lose their critical mass in the room, which is kind of that magical point where it feels alive. And a lot of churches close, but not because their clergy or their music departments were doing anything wrong. It's outside of their control. In academia, it's very poignant. This week, Worcester lost one of its 10 colleges, announced that they're
Mm.
closing, Anna Maria College. And we lost Becker College 3 years ago, an 18th century New England school. And last week, um, another Massachusetts school announced that they were closing. And these are at all of these institutions, they weren't doing a bad job. They weren't teaching poorly. There were big factors outside of control. It seems like you all are pushing through. I mean, you're building your program, right?
We are building. We have a great cohort of new students coming in the fall, and we, just got a GSI position that one of our grad students can teach non-majors alongside us, professors also teaching non-majors. So it really is a community effort, and I think, in light of what you're saying, Wesley, we need to remember that we can't do what we do in a vacuum, and that it's
Mhm.
so important to continue engaging the community, empowering other people to participate. One example I have is we started a concert series that happens every Thursday at one of the local churches that has an amazing Richard Spaux organ. It's called Division Street Pipes because the church is on Division Street. And that crowd has become almost like a little congregation.
Huh.
It's the same kind of group of people that comes, and they bring their friends. They bring visitors to it, and it feels like a self-sustaining effort because everybody feels like they are a part of what's happening. So I think that is a really important way, even in the face of these closures or rising tuition costs, to create something new in the face of it, so that we always have something to say with our art.
I love that. We were talking in the break too about just the importance of positivity. And we don't know the future. Like no one knows the future, but if you decide that it's dark and it's negative and you continue that energy, like yeah, you'll make it as a group, you'll make it a dark future. You have to believe
Mm-hmm.
in stuff. And now let's say I'm feeling older these days. I was born in the 1980s, at the very end there. And as we said, every decade, well, this is it, and no one's going to go to church anymore, and the organ's going to die. Well, that wasn't the truth. It's false. And I think there were people holding out hope the whole time. Um, and so I don't know. You said a few things about sort of staying positive, and that was really encouraging to me. What would you say to young organists today who might be like, I don't know, the kids that we were, at that time, 12, 13, hearing this music for the first time, maybe seeing Anna online, maybe going to a concert? What would you say to them to sort of encourage them?
Well, I would say that you are the future, and we need you. The world needs your music, the world needs your energy. And not that it's your responsibility to fix things that are wrong, but art and music are so uniquely human. And the only choice we have is to keep perpetuating it and playing the old masters, working with composers to create something new, improvising and composing yourself. Everybody can create beauty. And I think if we focus on that being the priority, along with community, so like this ideal beauty, and beauty can manifest in many different forms, right? And also community. I really think that's like the solution. I don't mean to sound Pollyanna-ish. We were talking in the break about how it's not like a surface level, everything's going to be fine without action, but a true belief in the mission of being musicians, of being collaborators, of being creators, and then doing the work, right? Like doing your slow practice, doing your follow-up emails, going to concerts even when maybe at the end of the day you want to stay home, but showing up. I think an important part of community is showing up. So, and I could do better at all these things myself. We're all works in progress, right? But yeah, I think believing in what you're doing is really important.
Thank you for being so generous with your time today, Caroline. I love, you have a wonderful just way of phrasing these ideas. And I'm feeling, I mean, at the end here, I'm feeling all hyped up, like, yeah, that's right. Like I just heard a locker room speech before we get out there and teach the organ. Thank you so much. And is there anything you'd love to kind of shout out? Do you have any immediate concerts? I know you can't talk about your recording yet, but anything you'd like to shout out for people?
Let's see. I just came back from one over the past weekend, and then we have the recording. But I'm playing at the Association of Anglican Musicians Convention in Atlanta in June at Peachtree Road United Methodist Church, and that should be a really good time. And I'm looking forward to some concerts in the fall that I'll be sure to publicize so people know about them if they're in their city.
What's your website?
It's CarolineRobinson.net, but probably a better one is just going through Karen McFarland Artists, because I think the concert dates are populated a little bit sooner on there.
Thank you for being so generous with your time today, Caroline.
Thank you so much for having me, Wesley. It's great to talk to you, and thanks for everything you're doing for the organ world.
All the Stops podcast is a product and trademark of All the Stops Media, LLC, and is recorded and produced by me, Wesley Hall. The music is written and recorded by me too. Copyright 2026, all rights reserved. Thanks for listening.